Hello, I'm Kathy Campbell, and I welcome you to Books to Hibernate With, where we hope you'll become acquainted with some books you didn't know about and that a few of them might appeal to you. During these cold, dark winter months, there's nothing more comfortable than cozying up with a book, a blanket, and your favorite hot beverage. So these are some suggestions for books you might want to read. Today, Tracy and I will be telling you about books we think you might enjoy. All of these books were published in 2020. All of the books we'll be talking about can be found in our catalog. If it says they're on order, you can still go ahead and put holds on them. If you need help doing this, or if you have any other questions, you can always call our reference desk at 891-5013, extension 3033. There's someone there 9 to 3, Monday through Friday. And now we'll begin with Tracy's first book.
Where Butterflies Go. The story begins with Mira living in the Jewish quarter in Warsaw, Poland in 1932 with her mother, father, and 2 sisters. Through a case of mistaken identity, her older sister is publicly embarrassed and leaves for America for an arranged marriage. By 1939, Mira is married and has a daughter. By 1941, people are going hungry, and Mira's family is kept alive by the aid of a child in Warsaw who can sneak out. However, in 1943, Mira and her husband and daughter are sent to a camp. When the camp has to close, Mira is one of only a few survivors. She survives long enough to make it to a displaced persons camp in 1948 and makes it to her sisters in New York City. Here, through the help of the United Service for New Americans, she finds lodging and a few jobs. She makes a few friends, reconnects with a Warsaw friend, and rediscovers hope and love. The author states in the endnotes that her story is based on her great aunt, and she had to set aside a few times because of the emotional burden. The characters will tug at you.
Leave the World Behind is a suspense book written by Rumaan Alam. In it, a white family of 4 rents a house on Long Island, expecting to have a laid-back week away from their home in New York City. But the Black owners of the house show up late one night in a panic. They say that a blackout has swept the city. The TV, radio, internet, and cell phones are all down, so no one can check to see what's happening or even if the couple is telling the truth. The family of 4 and the older couple are all forced into the house together. Who can be trusted? What is really going on back in the city? This is a compelling novel about race, social class, families, and most of all, how we handle the unknown.
The Lost Manuscript. Annalise finds a manuscript left in a hotel room on the coast of Brittany and begins a search for the author when it has such a profound effect on her. It contains some different handwriting in it, and when she finds the author, they discover the second half of the story was written by someone else. So begins their quest to find the people who had the manuscript in their hands and how it changed them. The story is told in letters written between the characters, and there is humor, hope, and a love of reading in the story that made for a very happy read.
Anxious People was written by the Swedish author Fredrik Backman, who also wrote A Man Called Uva. In Anxious People, a failed bank robber takes 8 hostages from an apartment's open house. None of them is entirely who they appear to be, none of them know each other, and all of them psychologically crave some sort of rescue. As the authorities and the media surround the premises, these reluctant allies will reveal surprising truths about themselves and set in motion a chain of events so unexpected that even they can hardly explain what happens next.
The Secret Diaries of Juan Luis Vives is a biographical fiction novel. It begins in the present when an electrician finds a box on a wall and gives it to a professor. It then takes the professor a year to research the items and especially the coded diary within. So we meet Juan in 1522 when he is first given this diary. Juan decides to write in codes and ancient tongues. He was actually born in Valencia, Spain, to Jewish converso parents and flees from there at the age of 17. He is educated in Paris and then taught in Flanders. He establishes relationships with Erasmus and Thomas More and then goes to England. And it is here much of his writing begins. He becomes a tutor to the Princess Mary and becomes involved with the Great Divorce, all the while trying to find a safe place for Jews to live.
The Chill was written by Scott Carson, a pen name that best-selling author Michael Corita is now using. This is an unusual fictional story about a town that ceased to exist once it was submerged so that a reservoir could be built over it for water needs of New York City. Some of the original inhabitants of the town, both dead and alive, are still trying to get revenge 50 years later.
Villa of Delirium is about an adopted son of the glamorous Reinach family and the survival of their home, a replica of the Greek villa, as it survives the confiscation by the Nazis and the deportation to death camps of the Reinach grandchildren.
I read The New Wilderness just this month. If you like dystopian novels, this might be the book for you. In this story, the world is pretty much just one big city because of population growth. The population is so dense that the air and the water can't be trusted. B's daughter is so ill that she's in danger of dying unless B can get them a permit to live in the last remaining wilderness. The government gives them the permit with the understanding that they will be monitored to see if it's possible for humans and animals to live in harmony on the land, since no one can remember a time when humans and animals came into contact with each other. So they and 18 other people become the first group to be studied. The rules regarding their movements are strict, and one of them is that they have to keep moving and can't set down roots anywhere. In this wilderness area, there are rangers and their families, small posts, and others maintaining them. Not surprisingly, the politics are alive and well, both in the posts and among the 20 nomads. This was a book I could not put down.
Emma Reed has left London and the grind and frustration of 25 years in the financial sector to start a second career. She has fond memories of family summer vacations in the village of Trevena on the Cornwall coast, and a tea shop in particular. Her and her brown and white Pembroke Welsh corgi, Oliver, meet a rather crabby woman on their first day, Victoria Roberts, a woman Emma realizes shortly afterwards is the owner of the building she wants to rent. While waiting for her cottage rental paperwork to go through, she stays at a bed and breakfast and meets various members around the village. Then when Emma takes the peace offering of scones to Ms. Roberts, she finds her dead. Oliver, who thinks of himself as a noble corgi warrior, can talk to Emma and tries to protect her and help solve the murder. There is much humor here, and if you are a dog lover, this story is even more enjoyable. There are several charming characters, and the backstory of a previous disappearance creates an extra mystery.
In a children's Bible, several families go on a vacation together at a lakeside mansion retreat. The children, ranging in age from toddlers to teenagers, become disgusted with their parents for neglecting them in favor of alcohol, drugs, and sex. When a catastrophic storm moves in, events begin to deteriorate, reflecting those in the Bible. Things are not the same after that. The families limp back to an altered civilization and live in a house of one of the families where the children continue to be in charge and take care of their parents. This book is easy to read and really makes you think.
The Last Garden in England. Emma Lovell's small landscape gardening company has been hired to bring the historic gardens of Highbury House back to life. The gardens were designed by Venetia Smith, one of the few female landscape gardeners working in 1907 England. During World War II, the house had been requisitioned by the government for use as a rehabilitation center for wounded soldiers, with recently Diana Simmons trying to maintain her house and family. Land girl Beth is working on a farm nearby and finding a home there, while local cook Stella Adrien cannot wait to leave for London and see the rest of the world. All of these women's lives blend together in this enjoyable book, although each time period is distinct.
The Guest List by Lucy Foley has gotten a lot of buzz, and at last check, there were 17 holds on our 6 copies. This novel features a lavish wedding in Ireland where everything is planned down to the most minute detail. But things begin to go awry. As the champagne is uncorked, petty jealousies and resentments come bubbling to the surface. The groomsmen begin a drinking game from their school days. The maid of honor supposedly accidentally ruins her dress, and a male guest makes an uncomfortably caring toast to the couple. And then, as the final straw, a dead body turns up. This story is told from several points of view.
Margot and Lucas decide to steal their tech startup's user database in an attempt at revenge for being looked over. The heist takes a sudden turn when Margot dies in a car accident, and Lucas is left reeling when he hacks into her computer and realizes just how little he knew about his friend and whether her accident was an accident. This is an exploration of race and startup culture, secrecy and surveillance, social media, and friendship.
The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict is based on the true story of the 11-day disappearance of Agatha Christie in 1926. On December 4th, her car was found on the edge of a pond with a fur coat left inside, even though the night was frigid. 11 days later, she reappears, claiming amnesia and never offering a satisfactory explanation of where she's been. The truth of what happened during those 11 days has never been completely resolved, but Benedict gives a plausible explanation for what might have happened. Marie Benedict is a pseudonym used by Heather Terrell. As Marie Benedict, this is her 5th in a series of fictional books about real women, including Hedy Lamarr and Clementine Churchill.
Sweet Sorrow has 38-year-old Charlie Lewis on the verge of marriage and a fresh start, finding that he can't stop thinking about the past and the events of one particular summer in a theater troupe, a humorous coming-of-age story.
The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett is getting very high ratings on Goodreads. It's the fictional story of 2 Black identical twins who grow up to have very different identities. They are close as kids, but as adults, things have gotten complicated. One lives with her daughter in the Black Southern town where the twins grew up. The other secretly passes for white, and even her white husband doesn't know her origins. This book provides an interesting exploration of some of the reasons for which people feel compelled to live as something other than what their background would dictate.
The House on Vesper Sands is set in London, 1893. High up in a house on a dark, snowy night, a lone seamstress stands by a window. Why does the seamstress jump from the window? Why is a cryptic message stitched into her skin? And how is she connected to a rash of missing girls, all of whom seem to have disappeared under similar circumstances? On the case is Inspector Cutter, a detective as sharp and committed to his work as he is, but still maintaining a sense of humor. Gideon Bliss, a Cambridge dropout in love with one of the missing girls, stumbles into becoming Cutter's sidekick, and clever young journalist Octavia Hillingdon sees the case as a chance to tell a story that matters, despite her employer's preference that she stick to a women's society column.
She Lies Close by Sharon During is a twisty thriller about a child who's gone missing, the suspected kidnapper, and the woman and child who unknowingly move in next door to him. When Grace learns about her neighbor, her worries cause her to lose her grip on reality. She's not sure what is real and what she is only imagining. This book deftly explores the limits of psychological fiction.
How the Penguins Saved Veronica features 85-year-old Veronica, a crusty but charming woman, her estranged grandson, and a colony of penguins and the scientists studying them. Veronica is estranged from her family and wants to find a worthwhile cause to leave her fortune to. When she sees a documentary about penguins being studied in Antarctica, she tells the scientist she's coming to visit and won't take no for an answer. Shortly after arriving, she convinces the reluctant team to rescue an orphaned baby penguin. Her grandson Patrick arrives to make one last attempt to get to know his grandmother. Together, Veronica, Patrick, and even the scientists learn what family, love, and connection are all about.
Agatha Arch is Afraid of Everything by Kristen Bayer tells the story of the many fears and phobias that Agatha has. Because she's so afraid of people, no one really knows her, and she really doesn't have any friends. At the beginning of the book, she discovers her husband and the local dog walker are having an affair. Her response is to begin spying on them. As the book goes on, her husband tells her he's in love with the dog walker and wants a divorce. Now Agatha really has something to be scared about, which is having to face life on her own. Agatha is seeing a therapist who tries to help her work through all of her fears. Eventually, she begins to see strengths in herself. This is a fun and easy to read book that may make you laugh out loud a few times.
The Broken Spine is the first book in a new series featuring Trudell Beckett. She has been an assistant librarian in the town of Cypress, South Carolina for 13 years. She is relatively content with 2 great friends and a job, but the town itself has high unemployment, and the mayor and the town manager decide to make the town the next great technology center, and the library is forced to become bookless. Unfortunately, one of the 2 men die on the night Trudy and her friends are sneaking boxes downstairs that will form a hidden library. Because she cannot tell the truth of what she was doing, she is a suspect. As she says, Nancy Drew would never find herself in a knot of trouble this tight. The characters are believable and make mistakes, and there is humor too. Our Italian Summer by Jennifer Prost is a look at a family in relationship trouble. Grandma Sophia knows there is something terribly wrong with the relationship between her daughter Francesca and her granddaughter Allegra, and even between her and her daughter. So she takes her stash money and plans a trip to Italy as a summer surprise. The story is well written, and the 3 points of view move the story forward without overlapping. I really empathize with the grandma and the teenager, but not so much with Francesca. See what you think.
Nicholas Sparks has a new book out called The Return. The main character in this book is a veteran. Trevor Benson is a Navy doctor who's injured in a mortar blast and returns home to a cabin he inherited from his grandfather to recuperate. There he falls in love with a local woman, and even though she returns his affections, she remains distant, leaving Trevor to wonder what she's hiding. Also locally is a sullen teenage girl who seems to have a connection to his grandfather. As Trevor tries to uncover the secrets of both women, he learns that you often need to return to the past in order to move forward. The Pull of the Stars is a new novel by Emma Donoghue, the author of Room and Frog Music. This book has a lot of parallels with what is going on in our world in 2021. It takes place in a Dublin hospital during the flu pandemic of 1918. Julia is a nurse who manages a quarantine ward for expectant women who've come down with the flu. The hospital is overcrowded and understaffed. 2 women come into Julia's unit at about the same time. One is a doctor who turns out to be a rebel on the run from the police, and the other is a young volunteer. The story takes place over an intense 3 days, and these 3 women come together in unexpected ways. This novel brings hope to a seemingly hopeless situation.
Betta, Sandro, and Marco have been friends since childhood, as have their families. In the book Eternal. However, Mussolini and his fascist followers tear the country apart and families apart as well. The story really begins in 1937 in Rome, Italy. The author has researched the time period, and her descriptions of the city put the reader there. I don't want to give away the story, and there are surprises, but the characters are sympathetic, and as a reader and history student, I worried about their fate. Also, I like that this story was told by several of those characters. Lastly, the author illustrates that families are not always made by blood.
The Awakening by Nora Roberts is the first of the Dragonheart Legacy trilogy. Breen unexpectedly finds that her parents have been saving funds for her in an investment account, and now it's worth $4 million, which is enough to pay for a trip to Ireland, where she's always wanted to go. Once she arrives, she's faced with mysteries that can only be answered by going through a portal where she will meet her destiny.
Murder Most Sweet is the first book in the Bookish Baker mystery set in Lake Pottawatomie, Wisconsin. Theodora Teddy St. John is a cozy mystery writer who loves to bake. She's also a cancer survivor with 3 besties, a brave dog, and an interfering mother. There is a little romance with a visiting author that leads to murder, and Teddy begins to investigate when she is accused. I like that she is not an amateur detective that takes ridiculous risks. There is humor in this story too.
You Can't Catch Me by Catherine McKenzie is the story of Jessica Williams, who lived in an abusive cult beginning when she was a child. She only escaped 12 years ago with the help of a former policeman. She has a lot of fear left over from those days, and she's always working hard to overcome it. When another Jessica Williams steals her money and her identity, she's not about to let her get away with it. She advertises on Facebook and finds other Jessica Williamses who have been taken by her. What develops is a complicated plot to entrap her and force her to pay their money back. This book is full of complicated twists and turns. If you like trying to figure out the ending to a puzzle, this book is for you.
Memorial. Mike and Benson seem to be at a crossroads in their relationship. They are a mixed-race couple, and their family relationships are stressful for both. Then Mike gets word that his estranged father is dying and takes off for Japan to be with him, just as his mother is coming to Houston. This leaves Benson living with Mike's mother. Both men meet new people and possible lovers and try to rebuild relationships. The mom provides some humor, and the ending is hopeful.
That concludes our presentation. I hope you've gotten some good ideas of titles you'd like to read. If you have problems finding them in our catalog, or if you have other questions or comments, you can call the phone number on the screen to reach the reference desk, or you can email me at the address on the screen. Thank you and happy reading for the rest of this winter.